Okay, so if we walk in the gym right now, I give you 100 spot shots from your favorite spot on the court, 3-pointers. How many are you making?
I say a cool 70.
Nice. All
What
right.
about you?
Me? I mean, you're asking me if I walk in the gym, 100.
You making 100?
I mean, if you're asking me, yeah. I mean, will I make 100? Who knows? But if you're asking me how many I'm gonna make, I'm saying 100. Man, I'm excited. One thing that really excites me is the next generation, all the young talent that we have, and the Asian hoopers. And so we have an Amazing here today, Anthony, representing the LMU Lions. Got a lot of exciting highlights. I got a chance to check it out. But introduce yourself, man, and just give us a little bit of background. Where are you at? What are you up to these days?
My name's Anthony Yu. I'm currently a freshman at Loyola Marymount University. And I grew up in the Bay Area, and I grew up in a small city called Foster City.
Can you walk us through kind of the season and everything how that went? What was year one for you? What was that like for you?
Yeah, so year one for me, was a big learning experience playing with all these great players here at LMU. I was able to learn a lot, and yeah, we had a pretty good year. We made it to the second round of the WCC conference tournament. So
You're in off-season mode right now. What are you working on? What's goal 1, 2, and 3 for this off-season in terms of like, man, if I need to take that jump, if I want to crack the rotation, if I want to be a great collegiate player, what does that look like for you?
for me, I wasn't blessed with really elite height or athleticism. So improving my athleticism so I could run with those guys out there is a big part of my game. And just getting bigger and stronger, like just being Asian, and people automatically first look at you like, yeah, you're going to be perceived as weak and, not really a basketball player when you think about Asian people. So just kind of trying to break into the eye test.
Like, do you feel like you get everyone's best shot, or do you feel like people just like don't even take you seriously, or is it a combination of both?
That's a great question. In the beginning, I feel like they don't take me serious, but then once I started getting buckets, they're like, all right, hold up, let me lock in and really go at this guy, because no one wants to be embarrassed by Asian kids, most of the times I'm the only Asian out on the court, so just having that image in my mind, I try to be the best player I can be, don't try to force anything.
I love it, man. Wise beyond your years. And I want to hear what are your specific hoop dreams, because that's something that you've talked about. And one thing that like I love about the process and the journey is that like there's always this theme of, especially as an Asian kid or an underdog, that like you have to believe it and see it happen before it actually happens. So I want you to be on record saying like, okay, Anthony, April, mid-April, April 16th, 2021. Like, what is your hoop dream, so that when it does come true, we can look back and be like, hey, he called it, years ago. So what is your hoop dream? Well, I want to hear it, and I want everyone else to hear it too.
My hoop dreams, ever since a kid, I always watched the NBA, So if I'm fortunate enough one day to be blessed to make it to that level, I'd be really appreciative of that. And that kind of just, I don't really want to look that much into the future because I kind of want to live in the present. But yeah, my goal is to aim for the top. And, if I make it, I feel like it'll be able to inspire a lot of other people, just like yourself, Jeremy. So that's the ultimate goal for me.
I appreciate that. And then, and I definitely hear you on that, right? It's always a balance, because you can't be looking so far down the road that you're not here today. And it can be really like, it could feel like, okay, I have this dream of playing in the NBA. That could feel so far off or like so impossible at times. But then at the same time, you don't want to go through each day without an end goal, or like, hey, I think I can, or I'm working towards that. And so it's this constant balance. Cool. One thing I really appreciate is just how you've shared how I've been able to inspire you. And so, thinking back on the night when I got a chance to play against the Lakers, scored 38 points when I was with the Knicks. Where were you? Do you remember that incident? And like, how did it affect you? And how did it change the way that you kind of saw yourself, or as you keep talking about the hoop dreams or your future?
If I had $1 every time I watched Insanity, I'd have some good money. But, Yeah, on that night, I think I was in fourth grade at the time, and I was watching the game with my family, and I feel like, Jeremy, like the impact you were able to have, like, cause my parents never watched an NBA game before. So having my parents like watch the NBA game because of what you were doing, like, I think that's a really, really big deal. And yeah, I was watching the game as a fourth grader, and I was just like getting hyped every time you scored. And I was playing basketball at the time too, and I was like, if he could do it, I could do it. Cause oftentimes in American media, Asians, I feel like they don't get enough representation. So seeing someone that resembled myself gave me the confidence to be like, if he could do it, I could do it. And my mom says all the time, hey, if Jeremy Lin made it, you can make it too. She would always tell me that when I was down on myself. So yeah, that game had a really big impact on my life.
I mean, it's a similar story to me, right? Like, I remember the Rockets came into town, and at that time I was in high school, and I didn't have too much money growing up, but like I just like begged and annoyed my parents like from like months out, and I was like, look, the Rockets are coming to town, I need to buy tickets. And I still remember they were $11, like $10.95 or something like that, and we got the highest seats, but I had to just go see Yao Ming play. And I remember watching him play, and then at halftime we snuck down to the lower section, to the lower bowl, and and to watch the game. It was me and my brother, and it was the same exact feeling of like seeing him, like physically seeing him, and it was like, okay, yellow skin, like Chinese player, he's doing it, and that's kind of what, like, I always had a dream, a vague dream, but like when I actually saw it happen, it was like the seed got planted. Like, no, you can do it. Like, you can go for it, right? And at that time, I had no idea it would actually happen, but I actually like seeing somebody else help me a lot. And so, hopefully you are that for the next generation, coming up, behind you, and I can't wait to see it. I'm going to be rooting for you. I love the way that you talk about yourself and the chip on your shoulder, and I'm really excited for your sophomore season too, because I want to see this happen.
Yeah, and like another reason why I really want to do this, like, I don't feel like, obviously I'm not at your level yet, but even me, I had multiple kids like DM me on Instagram, ask me in person, like Asian kids be like, oh, like ask for advice and help, and saying how I inspire them. So just seeing the small impact I have done, and like it affected other kids, so it just really motivates me to keep on doing it.
So I know that you had a cool mixtape that you uploaded onto YouTube, hundreds of thousands of views, but there's some stories that that we've heard. Can you talk about this and the reaction and what happened?
Yeah, so it was my 8th grade summer going to my freshman year. We played the Oakland Soldiers, and at the time they had the #1 player in the nation. And we lost, but I scored 40 on them. And then my dad uploaded the video on YouTube, and then another media company reposted it, Simply Basketball. Shout out Terrence, that's my guy. And yeah, they reposted it and got over 150K views. And as a 14-year-old, I wanted to read the comments just to see what people are saying. And one comment that really stuck out with me was like, some guy said, in 10 years, nobody would know who Anthony Yu is. Asians are not genetically gifted enough to play basketball. They're too skinny and fragile. And it just makes me question, like, why are people writing off a 14-year-old, Just because of my race, and through my experiences, the majority of the time, I was the only Asian player on the court. And there were definitely times where I felt like my race played a factor in how people viewed me. And yeah, my identity left me feeling isolated at times.
Yeah.
So, I feel like I didn't deal with it the best way I could. I always try to like show off, and when I played basketball, I would play for other people. Like, how would other people view me? And I feel like that's kind of mentally not the best way to do things in life,
And that's a perfect, segue for us, because as you know, right now in this political climate, with everything that has happened, with the pandemic and everything here, thereafter, like what are your thoughts on just the violence that we've seen, and it seems like, to me, from my perspective, it seems like Asians and Asian Americans were disrespected, but now it's almost like on the like full display, or it's even like it's getting even worse, it seems like at times. So what are your thoughts on that?
So I feel like Asian hate in this country has been normalized and socially accepted, like without a thought. And I feel like our elders are the ones that are most vulnerable, especially because many of them have been voiceless for much of their lives in America. But I feel like with our younger generation, with the help of people like you, like it gives us the confidence to speak out for the voiceless, and because no one else will. And one of my friends, Pranav, the one who created this company, shout out, amazing. He created a media company for to give a voice for Asian Americans. And yeah, I feel like the younger generation, like we're actually speaking up, and yeah, just creating a platform for Asian Americans in this country.
Yeah, and I'm gonna do a quick wardrobe change because you know it is something that obviously is near and dear to my heart, but talking to, and this is cool because I get to talk to somebody who, you know, is much younger than me, but like, what is it, like you said, it's like this next generation doesn't want to stay silent or things like that. Like, give me a little bit more on the perspective that you have, because when I came in, it was like, you know, my parents couldn't speak English perfectly, right? And so they lived that immigrant life. And for me, I didn't actually understand a lot of the issues. Even when I went through Linsanity, I didn't understand a lot of the issues. Everything, you know, there's direct racism, being called a chink and all that other stuff, but then there's so much more to it, and there's so much complexity, and there's so much subtlety and microaggressions and things like that. But for you now, you're like you're saying, it's normalized, it's so obvious. As you know, basketball culture and even basketball leagues in the NBA has been really outspoken, really progressive, and especially with social justice, and there's this unique voice that basketball culture can tie into the social justice issues that we're seeing. So can you talk a little bit about basketball culture and why basketball culture has been so influential, from NBA players down to, you know, everything else? Can you talk about how there's a unique situation for basketball players, hoopers like us, to be able to drive the social justice movement?
Yeah, that's a great question. So kind of with the whole basketball culture, you know, I feel like basketball really brings a lot of people together in this world. You know, you don't, like, it doesn't matter what color you are, what color your skin is, as long as you can ball, you know, you can have that mutual relationship with other peers. And just the whole culture of just playing basketball, traveling the world, traveling America, and just being around a certain group of people for a long period of time, it brings people together, in my opinion. What about you, Jeremy? What do you think?
You know, basketball, sports in general is a unifier, right? And there's things that just unify people, and I call them hooks. It could be sports, it could be, you know, basketball, it could be music, it could be food, the dinner table. I mean, these are all things that unite people and bring people together. And so the best thing I love about basketball, like I said, is just, I mean, it's a team sport, and you're all about the team. And especially now, because we've seen the NBA be outspoken, and because we have seen so many different, you know, when you watch the NBA, when it first originated and you saw certain things versus now, and even recently within the last 10, 15, 20 years, how global the game has become. And now we're seeing so many European players, African players, we're starting to see Asian players. I mean, it's become a melting pot, and that is a microcosm of what we want the world to look like. And so, like you said, when you step on the court, it doesn't matter how tall, short, ethnicity, it doesn't matter. It's either you can hoop or you can't. It's either you won or you didn't. And I feel like there's this even playing ground that once the game begins, nothing else matters. And I think that's what we're shooting for in life, is that, like, it's not about, we're not selectively letting people onto the court of life because of what they look like. It's just like everyone has an equal shot, and that's what justice is about, and that's what we're going for. And so I do think it's important that basketball and basketball culture is very much in that conversation, which you know we are.
Yeah, and I feel like we could just learn so much from, like, different cultures, you know, like especially with the Black Lives Matter movement and events like George Floyd and all the rallies. It really educated me on how, like, severe the discrimination was towards the African American community. And just, I was able to see so many people of my age and people who don't necessarily have big platforms, like, gathered together, and it showed me, like, a power a regular person could have. And in this time, I feel like you don't have to be a celebrity or someone for your voice to matter. And then just, you don't need a big following to speak up and voice your opinion.
Yeah, I love it, man. I love it. When the police brutality was at its peak, you know, I was with the Brooklyn Nets, and again, because of basketball, we've had different exposure, and so I got to see my teammates, many of them African American, just how much of a toll it was taking on them, right, with the police brutality. And I mean, these are guys who will be in an arena, 10,000 people cheering for them. They'll go down the street, and if they get pulled over, they don't know what's going to happen. They don't know if they're going to live. They're fearful for their lives. And this is real life. And we got to experience and see that because of the game of basketball. And that gave me a much deeper appreciation for my African American teammates, as well as a conviction and a challenge to myself. Like, okay, then who do I want to be as a person? Like, I can't just turn a blind eye or like only care about Asian issues. And so a lot of that was, like you said, inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement and seeing what they were going through. And that's what it, you know, drives me today to be more educated and to be a better ally. And that's what we're talking about a lot, is allyship, you know. And so, you know, I want to tie that into the last question. The last question for you is just, with Stop Asian Hate, and all the people that are watching, like what can people do? What would you suggest?
I feel like people, you know, you can just spread the message and just talk to your peers of different cultures and just really learn about what their lives are like and kind of bring it to your own perspective and just relate it to yourself and just education.
I'll end it with this, is I've always said that, like, you have to start with dialogue, and that's why basketball is cool, right? Basketball is what starts the dialogue, because you got that hook you're tied in, you're talking about the game or whatever. You have to take dialogue and communication, and that builds awareness, right? Like, because we're talking, now we're aware more of, you're aware of what your teammates are going through, your teammates are aware of what you're going through. From awareness, you're gonna have accountability, right? And so that's kind of my little, like, I think it comes in those 4 stages, but basically what you're saying is at stage 1, at the very minimum, you gotta learn and have dialogue and communicate with people of different colors and people of different culture, and that's where we can all start. Like, there should be no excuse, we can all start there. You know, for me, everybody can do that. Everybody can take that one small step, and that's how we stop Asian hate.
Yeah, you heard it from the man himself. That's how we stop Asian hate.